The Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom through investing in real estate. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life you love. I'm your co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the book, Without Fear of Her Future.
And I'm Melissa Baker, real estate investor and fitness coach specializing in turning properties from drab to fab. I'm here to help motivate and inspire you to build your dream life because, girl, you deserve it.
Hello, beautiful. Welcome back, Without Fear of Our Future listeners. I'm so excited for today's episode. We are going to be sharing all of the tips and tricks of one of the most popular REI strategies. We are talking about flipping.
How to make a lot of flipping money.
A lot of flipping money. You know, HGTV makes it look easy, but flipping houses is a lot more than just picking paint colors and pretty couches. So join us today as we take a walk through the good, the bad, the ugly, and the hard yet simple and profitable side of house flipping. You know, Tresa, I'll never forget when I first became a stay-at-home mom, sitting there with my baby watching Trading Spaces on TLC. I don't know if you remember that, but I was home with my baby and I loved watching them design these beautiful rooms. You know, it was two families. They would take one room in each house and they would trade and the designers would do their thing. And I remember watching that thinking, I could do that. I dreamed of doing that for myself. And then here I am, years later, flipping houses. Yes.
I love it.
But you know, I didn't just dive into this blind. I took the time to get the specialized knowledge that I needed to be successful. So let's start there at the very beginning, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have a few tips. We have about 5 tips that we're going to share today that you must know before you just jump in to flipping houses. You know, we did some research one time and we found out that the most people flip one house.
Oh,
yeah,
that's it.
One house. And that's because they do it without specialized knowledge, without any guidance. They don't know all the things that we're going to talk about on this episode today. And they end up either working so hard and making no money or even losing money. And then they give up. So we're going to share with you the 5 tips that you need to know so that you can make money, make really good money on every one of your flips.
Yes. The first one I'm going to start out with is probably, I think, it has to be the most important because it's at the very beginning, and that is only flipping properties that fit the golden formula. And the golden formula is 70% of the ARV, which is your after repair value, minus your repairs. No excuses. You don't waver from that. 70%
exactly right.
of the ARV minus repairs.
Absolutely. When you flip properties using that formula, it leaves room for you to use other people's money.
Yes.
Pay the points and interest, as well as it gives you a little fudge room. So if you do make some mistakes, or if you underestimated the repairs or overestimated the ARV.
Or it takes longer.
That's exactly right.
Things happen.
When you start flipping properties that you get under contract that don't equal that golden formula, that's when you're going to get yourself into trouble.
That's right.
Now, obviously, we don't have time on this episode, but on many other episodes and in our masterclass, we teach how you find those properties and how you get them under contract and all those things. We don't have time to talk about that today. So the number one thing you need to know is only flip properties using the golden formula. And you already said it, no excuses.
No excuses. It's a 70% of the ARV minus repairs, not 72%.
That's right.
Not 75%. I know people think a little bit doesn't matter, but
Absolutely.
you know, when you're talking about profit and loss, that little bit of
matter.
percentage, it can absolutely matter. It can absolutely matter. Okay, the second thing that I want to talk about is not over improving the property. You want to run your comps. Look at the comps in the area where your property is, and you want to make them look like the comps. If the comps have stainless steel appliances, you want to do in stainless steel. If they have granite, you want to do granite. If they don't have granite, they're all Formica, that's what you go with.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not what you would want in your personal home, but you're improving to that particular area. If you over improve, that's when you risk losing money.
You're right. And that is a very common mistake that new investors make. And because we get emotionally involved and we want to, and especially, I love lights. I could just go crazy on light fixtures and all those things. And so you end up over improving, you already said it, for that neighborhood. And then when you go to sell that property, you don't make that money back.
Right.
So that's a very, very common mistake. And again, we are mentioning things like comps that we don't have time to go diving into how you run comps and what comps are. But just really quickly, running comps is comparables. That's looking at other properties, usually in about a half a mile radius, that have sold in the last 6 months. You look to see what those houses look like, and then you make yours look as close to
If
that
they
as
have
possible.
carpet, you put in carpet.
That's right.
If they're hardwood, laminate, that's what you
Yeah,
use.
you want,
Exact same things. Yeah. That was one of the mistakes I think with my very first flip, because you do get emotionally attached, especially on your first one. And, as women, we want to make it pretty and we want it to feel warm and welcoming. So I had partnered with another girl in the network, and we removed some walls, which was okay, opening the space up. We added a fireplace. I don't think that any of the other houses in the neighborhood had fireplaces. So that was something that we wanted to put in there that it didn't really need. And so we didn't make that money back on that one. But, lesson learned.
that's right. That's
So-
exactly right. So, like I said, it's common, but and it takes time, but once you learn to stay right within the comps, that's when you really start making a lot
Right.
of flipping money.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. The third thing is not to do the work yourself. You definitely want to hire a contractor. Leave it to a contractor, because you don't want to tie yourself up being a handyman, because you need to be out looking for the next deal, negotiating, closing other deals, doing other things with your time, not overseeing a job. You're going to run yourself ragged. It's up to you as the investor with the specialized knowledge to walk your properties, find the mistakes that the contractors need to fix, bring in the good ideas, make sure they know exactly what they need to be doing to bring, your vision to life. Right,
Absolutely.
of what you're wanting. The thing is, you shouldn't be running down to Home Depot every 5 minutes because they need something.
Yeah, you got it. And again, that's where new investors make the biggest mistake. They think they're going to save money if they do all or even part of the work themselves. Well, something that you will hear us saying all the time is it's not what it costs you, it's what it makes you. So instead of thinking about, it's going to save me some money if I do the work myself, think about it. Listen, if you got it under contract using the golden formula, you can afford to pay your contractors, and then you set it, instead of you doing all that work, go get that other house under 2 or 3 or more properties under contract. Now you're really making a lot of flipping money instead of tearing down walls, running to Home Depot, putting in floors. We're not teaching here at Without Fear for Future at the Rain. We're not teaching you how to be a contractor. We're teaching you how to be a real estate investor.
That's
so
right.
I love that tip. I love that tip, Melissa.
Yeah, that was one of the important things. I know that there was a lot of things, I think, on that first flip that we did ourselves to save money, and it didn't save us any money. I learned why people charge as much as they do to paint the outside of a house.
That's exactly
It is
right.
hard work.
Absolutely.
And that was time that I could have spent marketing, door knocking, making phone calls, negotiating,
Absolutely,
doing some
girl.
things for the other deals. So,
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we are already at tip number 4, which is how you deal with contractors and dealing with contractors like a professional, which really dealing with contractors, if we're being honest, is probably the most difficult part of flipping.
it really is.
So,
it really is.
girl, you better know how to deal with your contractors or you will be taken.
Yes.
We have heard so many horror stories about the contractor who just, they gave them $30,000 up front, you never saw him again. Or he came into 2 weeks worth of work and then ran off. So many things. So let me share a few tips with you.
Yes.
Something that we do and teach is we never pay our contractors before the work is done. And of course, your contractor, whenever you're hiring him, is usually going to say, hey, well, we're going to need, 30% up front, or maybe he wants 10,000 or 20,000 up front, and we just never agree to that. We say, hey, I'm sure that you pay your subcontractors on Friday. They usually say yes. We'll say, well, and you're paying them after the work that they've done. Yes. Well, then we're going to pay you on Thursday. So we'll come in on Thursday. We're going to do a walkthrough, and for all the work that is done, we're going to pay you on Thursday so that you have time to put that check in the mail or in the bank, and then you can pay the subcontractors on Friday. They don't love it, But if they don't agree to that, then we're going to go find another contractor.
Right.
Here's the benefits to that is we are not going to lose money because we're only paying for the work that's done. But the thing for them is they start to understand, hey, we're doing a lot of houses and we're going to keep you really busy. You don't have to go marketing. You don't have to go look for
Right.
your next your next
got work
job.
for
You've
'em.
got work to do. And we're much easier. I feel like investors are much easier to deal with than homeowners. Homeowners are perfectionists. They will, oh, you may change the color in that bedroom 4 times. Where investors are not going to do that. We're going to, for us particularly, we paint almost all of our houses the same color. We're about doing lots of houses and getting them done. And so that's number one is we only pay for work that is done. We always get multiple bids, several estimates, written bids before we actually hire a contractor. We don't always go with the lowest or the highest. We usually kind of look and we compare all of them, see which ones that we feel good about. We always get referrals. Anytime we have a new contractor, we want to talk to someone that they've already done a deal so that you can find out, did they show up? And you want them to sign a scope of work. They're going to write out what they're charging you for each thing. They're going to sign that scope of work, which is a description of the work that they're going to do in the kitchen, in the bathroom, putting in the flooring, whatever it is. And we love literally to show our contractors pictures of the comps and say, hey, listen, this is what we're looking for. We want to make this house look as much like that house as we possibly can. So we're not over improving and all of that. So we're getting that that scope of work signed. That's our contract. Okay, now we're paying the contractor after the work is done. Also, something that we usually do is not usually always, is we take a photo of their ID, their insurance, with them in front of their car with the license plate.
Smart. Okay.
We're getting it all. We want a
Yeah.
photo of them. And here's what we've learned. When they see us doing that, they know we're professionals. They're like, okay, this is not really the person that we need to try to take advantage of. Right. Listen, the first thing I want to say is we love contractors. And most contractors are amazing people. But some can be a little shady. And a lot of them, they just are robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and they just get themselves into trouble. And so one way to protect ourselves is getting that photo of their ID, making sure they have insurance, getting a picture of their license plate. And then one other thing is always get a lien release signed so every Thursday when we're paying, they're going to sign a lien release on the work that they've done. That means that they can't come back and say, we didn't pay them for this work and put a lien on this property, because that's another horror story that you hear about from contractors. And so if we do that all the way through and we get the lien release and then we pay them, now we're on to the next part, then we get this lien release and then we pay them, and then you get the final lien release when the job is finished. Woo, it's perfect. And it's a win-win for the contractor. It's a win-win for you. Also, just make sure that you get their 1099, so you can deal with taxes and all of that. So
such great advice to make your flips flow smoothly.
Absolutely.
For things to go as you plan.
That little piece of information right there could save you thousands and thousands of dollars and tears and heartache and lawsuits and lots of,
It absolutely can. The final piece of advice is something we've been saying throughout this entire episode, and that's talking about specialized knowledge. And I think having the specialized knowledge and the guidance to flip homes is so important. I don't feel like that's something that you just go out and try to do. You hear people lose money, I think, because they don't have the specialized knowledge. It's not as easy as it looks on TV, makes it look so simple. And in a 1-hour episode, they do a whole lot of work. And we know that doesn't really happen, right? It takes, weeks and weeks, months sometimes, to do the amount of work that you see on TV.
Absolutely.
So that specialized knowledge is key.
Yeah, and we just touched base with a little bit of specialized knowledge today, but also having guidance. That's what we have coaches for in our network, is to say, oh yeah, and just sharing different ways to do this. How you can, potentially make more money when you go to sell that property by doing these things. Don't waste money by doing, some of the other things. So specialized knowledge and guidance is absolutely key when it comes. Listen, real estate investing, the average profit on a flip is $65,000, which that's amazing. But there's risk involved. And so you definitely want guidance along the way. You want to have all the specialized knowledge. So don't jump in without getting that. Here's the deal. Flipping houses might look glamorous on TV.
Yeah, it does.
But as you heard today, success comes from what we're just keep talking about: specialized knowledge, strategy, preparation, knowing how to deal with contractors,
Yes.
all of those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And whether you're a seasoned flipper or ready to flip your first property, remember, you don't need a construction background or a design degree. You need the right specialized knowledge and a willingness to take action.
Woohoo! Now, speaking of specialized knowledge and guidance, Melissa, I remember when you came through the masterclass, you received exactly that, and then I know you jumped right into flipping some houses. I know one of your houses you made $90,000
I did.
profit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I jumped in with a partner on the first 2 flips we did together. And then on the third one, it was one that I did on my own. And it was one I made the offer. I went to the golden formula, and I believe the house was up for sale for I think it was about 160. And golden formula, my offer was 150. So I was a little bit lower, and they didn't take my offer. It went to a hedge fund. And so I walked away from it.
Good for you.
And about 2 weeks later, my realtor called and said, hey, the deal fell through, and they've come back and asked if your offer is still good. So I got the house. Now, this was a house that it had been taken down to studs, and the only thing that the owner had done was the foundation. It was a pier and beam. So I walked in and had to create an entire new floor plan because it didn't have walls, really. So it was a longer project, and it took longer than I anticipated. It took longer than I had planned for, but I did everything by the book as I learned through the
Masterclass.
the master class, and then joining the network with the coaches. Having the coaches was priceless. To have someone at my fingertips to help with questions and stuff as I worked my way through this property for the first time on my own without a business partner. And this project worked out so beautifully because everybody involved made money. So not only did I make money, but my contractor made money, my realtor made money, the people that I bought the home from made money. I had a stager that made money. Who else is it? My private money lender was from the network, made money, and everybody except for the contractor that I worked with was inside that I found in the network.
I love that.
Yes,
That's awesome.
yes. So the master class that gave me the specialized knowledge and then the information I needed to join the network led to the success of that first deal. And that was my first solo deal, and that was the one that I made $90,000. It was amazing.
That's
Worked out so great.
incredible. I love it. I love it. And it was beautiful. You did a fabulous job.
Thank you. That was a fun project.
Yeah.
It really was.
I know we have women around the nation, and you're saying you got that property for $150,000. And and that's great to start out with those lower end homes. Now, I know some places you can't even find a house for 150. Well, even Texas, it's hard to find that anymore.
No.
Because, everything is higher. But I do suggest that if the lower end houses in your area are 500,000 or 700,000, I would try to stay in the lower end on your first 3-4 flips. Get some experience under your belt. That's what I did for the first really 2 years. And then we started now, most of our flips that we do are very high-end homes, and we're taking roofs off and adding second floors and, then selling multi-million-dollar homes. And we have students that are doing that now as well.
Yes.
But again, I really recommend as you're starting out with those lower end homes.
Right. The lower end, and they don't need quite as much work. You don't necessarily want to have to move walls and take roofs off and stuff like that. Start with something that needs new flooring and some new countertops, new cabinets maybe.
Yes.
Just a nice
Great advice.
update.
Yeah. Something we haven't talked about, but remember to pull permits if you are doing new plumbing, electrical, if you're moving walls. If you're just doing cosmetics, you don't have to pull permits.
Yeah, but pausing on that one for a minute, that is so important. And this flip, as I said in the story, it took 11 months, and I had only budgeted with my private money lender really for 6 months. Okay. And at 6 months, I went to her and asked for an extension, and she was just gracious as could be.
Well, the private money lender ends up making more money if
Yes.
they extend that loan. So that's,
Absolutely.
again, it's a win. That's going to mean
was.
less profit for you.
Yes.
But can you imagine if you had finished it in 6 months? You made $90,000. You'd have made no telling how much on that.
Well, and the thing is, what was taking so long was the permits. But I was so thankful that they had pulled the permits that we needed, because to be able to sell it and pass inspections, with what we did to that house, we had to have those
them
permits
anyway.
in place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's so important. Don't cut the corners, because it doesn't pay. And that deal, turning out to be 11 months. At 9 months, I got a 3 months extension, and then at 9 months, I asked for another one. And again, she was gracious, because she was still making money and made some good money on that deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then again, if you're listening and you don't really want to flip houses, but you've got money sitting in a 401k or a retirement, and you want to lend that money. So that's the beautiful thing about the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, is we have some ladies like you were borrowing money, but now sometimes you're the lender.
Right.
And you're lending money to someone else in the network who is flipping a property, and you're making 12, 15, 18% on that money. So again, it's a win-win all the way around.
it really is, and all because of specialized knowledge.
Yes. And we would love to help you do exactly that. So if today's episode sparked something in you, maybe you're like Melissa, you watch Trading Spaces or you watch these HGTV videos and like, I want to do that. Maybe you want to be the next Joanna Gaines. Well, join us in our next Without Fear of Her Future Masterclass, where we break down how women just like you are building wealth through real estate investing.
Masterclass, it's designed to help you take your very first step with confidence. So head over to withoutfearofherfuture.com and register now. The future you're dreaming about, it starts with a single decision.
Yes. So until next week, remember that you are made for more. We bless you. Dream big and be brave.